There are changes. You just have to either accept them or just reject the movie overall. But I accept the changes. So. The second chapter of the Hobbit trilogy continues the story in an exciting and epic fashion. And while this time there are a little too many subplots and the character of Bilbo is a bit sidelined, the action scenes can be just really exciting. And I think that this movie is just entertaining. I think that the middle chapter of the Hobbit trilogy is the best one. It's got my favorite ending of all three movies. I think that it's really epic, and I just love the characters. While I don't think that this movie is perfect, I think that it has some problems. I still think that it's an entertaining second chapter of the Hobbit trilogy. There's a lot of changes here from the book, and that can bother some people. I know that a lot of people didn't like this movie just because there were a lot of differences from the few chapters that this movie adapts from, and I get that. Like, I understand if it really bothers you. Like, when I watched The Lord of the Rings of Power, and like there was nothing like the Tolkien books that we knew, and it was just like this made up fantasy world that was like just kind of like Middle Earth, but it wasn't really. It really pissed me off, and I'm not watching like season 2 of Rings of Power just because I think that season 1 was such a bad show. Like, it was such a bad season. This movie for me works. I enjoy the characters. Like I said, I think that the journey here is really exciting. It's really fun, and I'm just like glued to the screen from beginning to end, like the first Hobbit movie. I enjoy almost every part of this film. And yeah, I really am a big fan of Desolation of Smaug. I think it's the best one, like I said. So the cast expands here with like Evangeline Lilly as Toriel and Orlando Bloom as Legolas. And I don't think that they're like terrible additions. I don't love the way they did Legolas here this time around. I thought that he was way too serious, and he just doesn't really give me the same fun vibe of the character from Lord of the Rings. He just seems like a completely different character. Evangeline Lilly as Toriel, I think, could have been a lot more interesting than she actually was. And I think that Evangeline Lilly sort of expressed her frustration with the character. She was a bit saddened to see like how her character sort of became just part of this love triangle, and she just did that on Lost, and she did it again here. And I thought that they could have done so much more with her character. Just don't waste it away with like a love triangle between Legolas and Killy. It just didn't really work. I think this is my biggest problem of this movie. It just doesn't really fit in The Hobbit at all. It just feels corny, and I get what like Peter Jackson was going for, but I don't think that he really succeeded in execution. I think that like that's the biggest like con of this movie. It's this love triangle that has no place in The Hobbit, and it's just there to drag the wrong time. What I will say about this love triangle is that I like where it sort of leads in this film. I like that near the end, Toriel has a decision to make, and she decides to stay in Lake Town to help someone, and I thought that was well handled, but unfortunately it just doesn't go anywhere in the next film. So you're just watching this stilted romance that just doesn't really work on screen, unfortunately. Luke Evans as Bard I thought was awesome. Like, I absolutely love this character. I think that he is like just really well developed. Like, in the book, he is really just this man who is supposed to defeat Smaug, but in these movies I thought that they really did the character justice, and I like that he is this everyday family man. Like, his wife died and he is alone to take care of his children, and he tries to provide for the people of Lake Town. I think that Luke Evans was really superb in this movie, and he kind of looks like Orlando Bloom and Legolas, and I just think that's funny. the characters of Alfred and like the master of Lake Town, I think were both just mishandled in this movie. Like you could have just shown them for maybe 5 minutes, like when the dwarf company arrives in Lake Town and they like need to go to Erebor and Bilbo needs to vouch for Thorin. I think that like could have been the only scene we see them, but we see them over and over again throughout the movie and throughout the third movie. I'll get to the third movie, especially with the problems with Alfred. But here, I think we see them way too much. And I get probably Peter Jackson like working with these actors, so I understand. Probably that was the reason why, but they just didn't have a place in this movie. Their scenes feel long and drawn out, and I'm just not really a fan of them. I don't like these characters, and I don't see the point there to add them in this story. I just don't really understand why they're there. The returning cast are all terrific once again. Martin Freeman as Bilbo is wonderful. Ian McKellen as Gandalf is just absolutely terrific. And Richard Armitage as Thorin Oakenshield is just badass. I love all three of these characters, and I love the dwarves. I think that the dwarves here get a little more screen time than in An Unexpected Journey. I think that like this movie really showcases the dwarves better than the rest of the two movies, and yeah, I like the dwarves in this movie. And so this movie begins like with a flashback of the meeting between Thorin Oakenshield and Gandalf, and they meet in Bree, and immediately you're just like brought back to the Fellowship of the Ring, because like this is a familiar setting, and we see like Peter Jackson, his character eating his carrot, and we are immediately brought back to Middle Earth. And I love the conversation between Gandalf and Thorin, and we get a little extended scene in the extended edition. Actually, like the extended edition of Desolation of Smaug is like the most important one in my opinion, because like we focus a little more on Thorin's father, and it becomes actually like a plot point that wasn't in the theatrical edition. It's not really needed, but I think it's cool for like lore junkies like myself. Like it's pretty cool added stuff. So the two of them meet, and they discuss Thorin's father and how like he has gone missing, and Thorin believes that his father is still alive, but then Gandalf tells him like that all the dwarf rings have gone missing as well. And now they discussed Erebor, and Gandalf knows that Thorin wants to take back his homeland, and he shows him a key for the doorway. They discuss the Arkenstone, and Gandalf tells him that they need a burglar, and he tells him about Bilbo. He can go like almost unseen by Smaug because of his small stature. Flash forward to the present. The dwarves and Bilbo and Gandalf are being pursued by the orcs, and the orcs have already like catch up to them from the first film. They're after them. They just want to slaughter the company. And Bilbo is doing some like reconnaissance mission, and he sees like this big giant beast. And he warns the others, and Gandalf knows what this beast is, and Gandalf tells them like about this like sacred house that they could take refuge in. And so the company goes in there for the night, and the orcs decides to not attack because like this giant beast is protecting them. It's kind of like a bit far-fetched. Like I think that orcs would have attacked anyway, but let's go with it. And so the next morning they wake up, and I love like that Bilbo is being corrupted more and more by the ring. We actually see that. He just becomes way too attached to this object. We meet Bjorn, who is sort of this savage creature, and like he can rip you to shreds if like you startle him. So Gandalf wants the dwarves to come out of the house like in pairs, and so like they come out in pairs just like in the book, and they eventually all reveal themselves to Bjorn, and Bjorn sort of becomes a gracious host. He doesn't like dwarves at all in the beginning, but like he sort of warms up them, and he actually tells Gandalf that Gandalf needs to go investigate what's going on with the necromancer. And so they borrow his ponies, and they head out to the borders of the Mirkwood Forest. And so Gandalf tells the dwarves to release the ponies back to their master, and he decides actually to leave the company in order to go investigate what's happening in Dol Guldur. So Bilbo and the dwarves, they head into Mirkwood, and this is a great part of the movie. I really love when people are like stuck in the woods and like they can't find their way out. And it's got this weird like claustrophobia. This entire sequence, it's a little extended. I think in the extended editions, we get more scenes in Mirkwood. I love this forest. I think that it's really dark and sinister, and like there's a thickness that grows into it. So it doesn't go really well for the Hobbit and the dwarves. They get lost, and one of them falls asleep. I think it's Glowin that falls asleep, and like he falls in the water, and they have to like bring him up and carry him. Like, I love all that. I love the Mirkwood sequences, and I think that the spider sequence is just badass. Bilbo decides to climb a tree. He wants to see where the mountain is. Like, they're just completely lost, and he is finally able to breathe again. And like the color palette of this scene, like the colors, the cinematography is just amazing. Like he sees like a bunch of butterflies around him. He finally gets to breathe, and he sees Erebor. But like there are a bunch of spiders in the trees and about to eat his friend. He gets like stabbed by a spider, and like he goes asleep like Frodo did in Return of the King, and like all of his friends, and he is knocked out. So when he wakes up, he stabs the spider that stuck him. He kills her, and then he goes after the rest. And I love that he puts on the ring. He makes some noise so that the other spiders get distracted, and they head out towards like the sound. And so he goes after his friends, and he like cuts them loose, and so they are all okay. Bilbo just like fights one of the spiders off. I love this moment, like when he just stuns the spider, and then like you hear the spider like, where is it, and then he takes off the ring, and then he just like says like, here, and then he stabs the spider. You can just see how much Bilbo has changed, especially in the next scene. This next scene, he loses the ring. Like he finds it, but like this small spider is almost getting to it. It's crawling near towards it, and then he just stabs at the spider like multiple times. Like Bilbo is just really attached to his ring, and it's only been like a couple of days. It's insane. So he's super attached to his ring, and the dwarves, they like fight off some of the spiders, but the elves arrive, like the wood elves. Like Lost and Toriel, they arrive to help, and then they kill like all the remaining spiders. And so the elves, they bring the dwarves to their kingdom, and the dwarves are arrested. They are brought into these cells. Thorin goes to talk to Thorondale, who is Legolas' father, and who is a dick in this movie. Like, oh my god, like Legolas' dad is just like an asshole. And of course, like Thorin, he doesn't want to make a deal with Legolas' dad. I mean, who would? Like, this guy is just one super dick. And so Thorin still counts on like Bilbo's help, because like he noticed that Bilbo wasn't among them when they got arrested. And so he has hope that Bilbo is going to come and save them, and Bilbo does. Bilbo puts on the ring, and he steals the keys to the cells, and he manages to break the dwarves out of the prison. I like his plan here. Like, he uses the barrels to escape, and they like all fall down in the water one by one, and then like he has like no barrel left, and he doesn't know what to do, and he just falls down. Like, I really like this scene. And like, is it a little far-fetched that the elves were like drinking at the same time and they didn't really notice anything? Yeah, sure, it's a little far-fetched, but I think it's a really fun scene. The barrel sequence, it's fun. I enjoy it for like what it is. Is it over the top? Absolutely, it's really over the top. It like makes really no sense, but I enjoy it. I think that it goes a little on too long. I would have enjoyed it more if like Peter Jackson decided to cut the scene a little bit, because I think that the action scene is too long in my opinion. But nevertheless, it's an exciting scene. It's almost like a ride. Like the dwarves are all like just going along the water, and like orcs arrive, and the orcs fight off the elves, and Killy gets hurt and gets like an arrow in his leg. Toriel and Legolas, they arrive to help them. They managed to get away from the elves and the orcs. But before we get there, I want to touch on Gandalf's investigation, because Gandalf's investigation is my favorite part of the entire film. I love that he goes to the Nazgul's graves. So they discovered like the bodies are all missing, and this entire scene is badass. Like this, it really feels like the Lord of the Rings to me when Gandalf goes to this place, and like this place is just so sinister, and it feels cursed. It really does. And like you can tell, like whoever made these tombs, like you can tell that they didn't want people to come back here, because there are barely any stairs, and it's just like impossible to get there almost. And then Radagast meets Gandalf there, and the two of them, they understand that like something's wrong. And even Radagast says like, if you're right about this, the world's in danger. Like you can't go back to your friends now. You need to go to the Gold Door. And Gandalf decides that he has no choice. And so dwarves soon meet like Bard, the bowman, who like I said in the beginning of this review, he is awesome. Like I love this character. Introduction is a bit weird. He's just like has this the arrow like pointed at the dwarves, but they're just really a lot more. And he is just like pointing, like he's not gonna do anything to them. Whatever. He threatens them for like no apparent reason, and I've heard that like this is where the first movie was supposed to end, when the dwarves were going to meet like Bard the bowman. Peter Jackson said like that this was the reason that they like decided to make 3 movies, was because like this ending wasn't really working. But I feel like you could have really just like worked around that. You could have like ended the movie like 10 minutes earlier, or like 15 minutes earlier, or something like that. Like I don't feel like that's a good enough reason to make this a trilogy. And so they ask Bard for his help. They decide to pay him so that he can get the dwarves safely across the waters to Lake Town, and bring them like weapons. So the dwarves, they follow Bard in the uncharted waters, and like it's really dangerous because there are ruins in the waters, and like Bard knows his way through, and he brings the dwarves safely to Lake Town. He hides them in like the fish barrels. They're almost caught by like the guards of Lake Town, which is like really weird, like that the town is under this just rich man's rule. Like I guess like nobody really thought of revolting at this point. And Bard talks as much when he tells Alfred, like when like people are gonna get hungry, like this is gonna be your problem if like you throw the fish down in the water. I feel like people would have done that earlier. Like the guards don't seem that much in Lake Town, so like I don't understand why they actually like have a hold on this place. And so Bard brings them home, and the dwarves have to get into the toilet to get inside the house, and like it's this funny moment. And so they get inside Bard's home for like safety. Bard, he delivers the weapons, like he delivers on his promise, but like they're not satisfied at all. I don't feel like they're completely useless. They reject his help. They reject the weapons, and they decide to leave the place. Meanwhile, like Bard, like he goes to this place and he finds like the prophecy of like the dwarves that were supposed to return and like free Erebor. He finds this prophecy, and he discovers that Thorin is a king under the mountain. And I love the poem. I think the poem is really just well done. Like the poems in Tolkien are super well written. So some of the dwarves they head out to a mountain. Like Killy and like two other dwarves, I think they remain behind because like Killy is wounded and like Thorin tells him to stay behind. Like I get like why Thorin did that. Like I don't think that he was being soulless here, but Killy was going to die if he was going there. Like it would have been too hard of a journey for him to do, and so his brother Philly decides to stay behind with Killy. I think there are four of them that stays behind. So the rest of the company they head out to Erebor after they get like the town's blessing. They head out there and they try to find this door. They go up the mountainside, like they go up some steps. And I love like this entire sequence. Like this place is beautiful. It's so well shot too. Like Peter Jackson knows how to do incredibly good sweeping shots. And then like this part of the movie is a bit stupid because like Radagast tells Gandalf, "What if this is a trap?" And then Gandalf just says like it is definitely a trap, and then he walks right into it. Like it just feels like a bit dumb. I don't know why he just didn't wait for like Galadriel or Elrond or Saruman. It would have been like just a little bit wiser for Gandalf to have done that, but he doesn't wait for them. He goes in there anyway. He finds Thorin's father, Thrain. He finds Thrain in the Dol Guldur. The guy's insane. They just sort of corrupted his soul, and he immediately gets taken by Sauron. Like Gandalf doesn't even tell Thorin about it after that, and yeah, it just really doesn't feel like all that important. And so Gandalf comes face to face with Sauron. He finally realizes that the Necromancer is Sauron, and the two of them they battle. And like some people say that the special effects here are a bit not up to par. I don't have a problem with them per se. I don't think that they're incredible, but I never had a problem with the scene. I liked almost everything about it, so it just worked for me. So, but yeah, Gandalf gets kidnapped. He gets put in like this sort of cage, and Sauron sends his army of orcs to the Lonely Mountain. And yeah, I think that this scene is badass. It's just really great stuff. Gandalf's investigation in this movie is probably my favorite part of the movie, and I think that because it's like this link between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I thought that Peter Jackson really did it well, in my opinion. And so near the end of the movie, they go up this mountain, but they can't find this door. It's the last day of autumn. It's when they're supposed to be there, and then like the dwarves start to panic. Like they don't understand why they can't find this door, and then they lose the light. Like the sun sets on the world, and they feel like they failed, and so they leave. They just abandon, just like that. They decide to leave, and then Bilbo, he discovers that like it was the last light of autumn, but like the moonlight that shines on the door, and so he yells at them. He tries to get them to come back. He looks for the key, and then he almost like drops the key out in the depths, and Thorin just comes back in time, and he gets the key, and then he finally opened the door and entered the kingdom. From then on, I think that the scene with Smaug and Bilbo is like really great. It's really fantastic stuff. I like the dialogue between them a lot. I like how like Bilbo is sort of just trying to please Smaug, and Smaug is like taunting Bilbo. Bilbo is just like really a good wordsman. He really holds his own with Smaug, and I love the way this dragon looks. This dragon is beautifully done. Like Benedict Cumberbatch did the motion capture of this dragon, and then like Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman worked together on Sherlock, and so there you go. Got some great team ups in The Hobbit, like with Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis as well. And here another great team up. I love these two together. Smaug I thought was just beautifully done, like beautifully adapted. This is one of my favorite scenes in the entire film, actually, with Smaug and Bilbo in this treasure. And so the two of them they talk, and Bilbo is trying to bullshit his way until he gets the Arkenstone. He finally finds it, and he hides it in his pocket. He doesn't tell Thorin this because he sees that Thorin is like slowly changing. The gold is like corrupting his soul. And so, of course, the dragon is really mad. The dragon is mad that his fortress has been invaded by dwarves. I love almost this entire last act. I just think that it goes on for too long, almost like the barrel scene. Like, I like it at the beginning, but I think that maybe it could have counted down like at least 10 minutes of this sequence, because it's sort of just repetitive, and like none of the dwarves got burned. I feel like some of the dwarves would have at least gotten burned. It's just really a bit unrealistic. But yeah, I think that the chase is too long and it's too repetitive. That's mostly my main problem with the last sequence, but I get it because like this is sort of like the climax of the movie. It's the dwarves again versus Smaug, because like the real climax is in Battle of Five Armies. The dwarves, they have this chase with Smaug, and they try to sort of capture him in gold, like in melted gold. And I love the way that they like make this statue, like this dwarf statue of gold, and Smaug is just like completely fixed on it, and the statue just explodes on the dragon. It just is awesome. You sort of maybe think that Smaug is defeated, but then Smaug rises up from like the melted gold, and he just yells out like, "Revenge! I'll show you revenge!" And then he just like goes directly towards Lake Town. Like, you know that Lake Town is fucked. And then you get some frightened like faces from our heroes in Lake Town, like Legolas, Bard, and Toriel, and the dwarves. They know that something bad is going to happen, and so like the dragon just rushes out of the kingdom. He breaks the front gate, sort of. He makes a hole into the front gate. He just like says like, "I am fire, I am death." And then we get a shot of Bilbo, and Bilbo just says to himself like, "What have we done?" And the movie ends there. Like, it's just incredible. Like, I never, one in a million years, thought that the movie was going to end there. I know that some people don't like cliffhangers, and I get that. But for me, I just think that it was really unexpected. And I really enjoyed this cliffhanger. I think that it's really good. And I was really satisfied with this movie overall. I love the ending song too. I think is a really entertaining song. It's done by Ed Sheeran, and I really like this movie overall. Like I said, it's my favorite Hobbit film of all three, and yeah. I give Desolation of Smaug an A-. I think it's really an entertaining film. It's got some really good moments, some questionable moments, just like The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. But overall, I think the pros here really just work for me. And like the cons don't overshadow the pros. Those are my thoughts. I'd give this movie, like I said, an A-. Please let me know what you think about Desolation of Smaug down in the comments below. Please like, comment, subscribe, and see you next time.